Alright, welcome to day 5 of the daily study series. This is going to be our last day looking at middle position versus big blind for a little bit. But pretty excited about this session. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the boards we've gone through so far. There's 12 in total, I believe. 2 for each of these categories. Yeah, so 12 in total. Basically, we're going to go through each of these boards, look at the turn strategies, what imposition is supposed to do, and we're going to determine if we think that it's an overbluffed spot or an underbluffed spot. And then we're going to highlight each board, with whichever one we think it is. And we're actually going to be going in depth into PO, looking at what it's doing with certain combos. So hoping by the end of this session we'll have a deeper understanding of what PO is doing and why. For middle position versus big blind on these boards. So we will first hop into King Jack 4 two-tone here. And so this is going to be a 33 range bets. Tree. I have to plug in my external hard drive quick. That's where I have all these sims. King Jack 4, here it is. Alright. So checks, this is just a 1/3 pot range bet here. And for determining whether it's an overbluffed or underbluffed spot, I guess we'll just jump straight to the turn. So if we're going to be range betting this board, there's no really bluffing to be happening. So we're going to do a bet and assume a call here. And again, the raising range on the spot is some of the weaker 4x, the sets, 2 pairs, top and bottom, calling more often than top 2, which is a pure raise. Ace queen with a spade, ace 10 with a spade, ace of spades raising often, such as some of the check raises in big blind's range. Ace x of spades. Okay, so we'll say bet call, and on turn we'll put 6 of hearts, check, and we'll now look at imposition strategy on each turn. So I guess we'll start on the 6 of hearts is a good one. So it's basically a pure polarization spot of overbet or check for imposition. And we'll look at what combos we're checking, what hands we're bluffing with, etc. So on this 6, our value is King Queen plus, King Jack plus actually, where we're betting with still. King 10, we're doing a bit of checking. So that's the cutoff for our value range, I believe. Ace Jack is a pure check, yeah. So King Jack is the cutoff there for value. Or sorry, King Jack is 2 pair. Yeah, I'm an idiot. So King Queen, I guess, really is the cutoff for value. King 6 now becomes 2 pair. Interesting down here, these 7, 6, 8, 7, 9, 8. Air balls are bluffing pretty often here. Like 8, 7 if we ever show up here. As in position with 8, 7, we're just barreling. Although I guess 8, 7 has a gutter on this card, so never mind, I'm an idiot. 7, 6 is bluffing. Interesting there, yeah, that's just like, I feel like when you turn a lower pair, you're going to be using that card as a bluff pretty often. So all King X unless it's a 2 pair. So like King Queen's a value cutoff. Now for bluffs, we have like open-enders, gutters. Actually, before we get into that, let's look at what our flush draws are doing. So is flush draws with a pair are playing more passive. But every other flush draw, 10-8 is the only flush draw that's not pure overbetting. That isn't paired. So basically, any flush draw here is overbets. Okay. Let's look at our lower pair bluffs. Fours is a set. Threes if we show up here with threes. Basically, just need to have a spade if we're gonna barrel with these. Without a spade, although deuce is the highest frequency, 2 spades, 2 diamonds, is highest frequency, and then it's 2 diamonds, 2 clubs. Eights is like a pure check. Sevens with a spade and diamond is being bluffed. Okay. Like if I'm ever considering bluffing with a low pair like this, I'll basically just like if I'm gonna consider it, I would generally just make sure I have whatever suit of the card is the flush draw. So if I was gonna bluff with sevens here, I don't think I would do it with 7 diamonds, 7 of clubs very often, or 7 of hearts, 7 of diamonds. But if I had 7 of spades, generally is like what I'll look at. But it's interesting here how 7 of spades, 7 of hearts is mostly a check, but then some non-spades 7x is betting pretty often as an overbet here. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. Queens checking, jacks. So in terms of this being an overbluffed or underbluffed spot, I would say in practice it's heavily underbluffed. Like I just don't see many regs doing this with a6. Overbetting like this, or like I feel like people aren't even going so big with king queen all the time. And then with these like ace 10, ace queen hands, I guess these might be like in practice, like the frequency of these bluffs could be met pretty often. Yeah, so value is king queen plus in the spot, and then bluffs is just we want to have a spade and have some type of equity, whether it's open-ender, gut shot, and then the lower pairs as well. And then if we're here with these just like no, I guess 8-7's a gutter, but like 9-8 is a pure bluff because there is no straight draw with 9-8, is there? Yeah, no, there's not. So that's a pure bluff. So these like lower suited connected combos, 5-4, 6-5 that have a pair are barreling off. So these bluffs are, I think people will miss pretty often. But if we get to a spot like this where it's just like big blind still uncapped, like the best hand big blind could ever have here is 2 pair. If big blind didn't raise the flop, best hand he could have here is like a king 6 or king 4, 4-6, jack 6. So it makes sense to polarize in the spots. And I would say in general this is a pretty underbluffed spots. Let's look at other turns here. So it seems like a general heuristic is right. What we'll do is we'll look through some of these turns and see if it's played the same way, where it's like king queens that cut off, and then bluffing with see if we're using these as a pure bluff on like all these lower turns. Let's look at the 3 of clubs and see what changes on this turn. So 53% check. So our cutoff is still king queen. These lower combos still barreling heavy. 7's not bluffing. 5s are now being used more so as a bluff. Interesting. Not 7s. 10-9 is a pure barrel. It's interesting that 10-9 is a pure bet. Queen 10 is not. Queen 9 is. And I guess it's just we have so much more equity with the Queen 10 that we don't need to bluff all the time. Alright, so cutoff still king queen, king 10 is being bet a bit. Ace 10. Wow, okay, so on a 3, ace 10 is almost just like a pure bluff. Doesn't even need a spade. Position equity on this card is 48. Ace queen, flush draw, ace queen. Ace queen prefers to have a spade to bet here. Oh, and I'm just fucking around with these poker chips here, just like shuffle them. But that noise might be getting annoying, so I will stop doing this. Ace 5 is being bluffed. Ace 6 is being bluffed. Queen 9 is a pure bluff. So Queen 10 without spades is indifferent to over better check. The EV is identical. Okay. Yeah, I would say in general this is an underbluff spot. It's hard. It'd be hard to overbluff here, really. Just because like half of our range is an overbet here. So it's like if we wanted to bluff more often than this, we'd just be bringing in like the hands we want to check with, like more of these hands, lower kings, you know, hands that just don't really make sense to put an overbet with. So I'd say it's probably an underbluff spot, all things considered here. And now we'll look at. I do want to look at like what happens on a better card firm position. So 10, there's not much polarization. We'll look at the 10 of diamonds. So 51% check, not much polarization going on here. Ace queen is the nuts, and that's one of the few hands that will have an overbet here, mixing overbet and 75%. Queens betting here for 75%. Aces, kings, jacks, 10s. So this hand will bring in some 2 pairs for big blind. Big blind is going to have ace queen, but not at 100% frequency. Okay, so checking. Now if we bet 75 here, what does big blind do with ace queen? Is it just a raise? Raising with the spade often. Without a spade, just calling. Oh. little surprised to see Ace Jack folding so much here, but Jack 10. Alright, back to in position here. Queen 9's a straight. Queen 8 bluff, betting. So betting pretty often. We're checking with Jack 10, surprising. Ace King. Not a pure bet at all. We ever checking back flush draws here? Let's see what spades are doing, or flush draws always being bets. So some lower flush draws with a pair. Or checking back. 9-8 is open-ended with a flush draw. Checking back. 8-7 gutter with a flush draw. Could be the same for diamonds at this point. With a pair checking. 8-7 of diamonds checking. Check. 5-4 is betting. Ace 4 is over betting decently often. So in terms of this turn, kind of seems like a potentially overbluffed spot. I doubt people are hitting this frequency with 7s. Or like, I doubt many people are hitting this frequency with 7s. King Jack, what, is getting checked back pretty often. I don't think I'd ever check King Jack here, really. But PO does. So just trying to think about classifying this as an overbluffed or underbluffed spot. It's so hard to say. This seems pretty reasonable. Although like ace deuce is, no one's hitting this frequency with ace deuce, ace 3, ace 4, ace 5, which makes me want to think it's probably an underbluff spot. I don't think people are hitting this frequency with these hands nearly often enough on average. So, could this be an underbluff spot? It's very hard to say. So we got the 9 of hearts. Check. So mixing 75 and overbet on this one. Brings in the queen 10 straights. That's it. We're barreling with these small cards still. The lower pairs are just like pure bluffing. Ace 3, ace deuce. Blasting off. Ace queen over here with his spade, I'm sure is going polar, yeah. Oh wow, even without a spade. It's always betting. So on turn, the value range is cut off at king 10. All worse kings are pure checking. 2 pair. So value range is cut off at king 10, which isn't even a pure bet. With a spade it is. Without a spade it's not. Alright, so we have king, queen here, and bet 68%. This is big blind's response. Folding half the time. Some raising with sets, queen 10, 2 pair, jack 9. 10-8 bluff, 10-7 bluff. With spades, okay. Queen 10, preferring to have a spade. King queen doing a little bit of raising here. Seems a little bit loose for a turn raise. So all these kings continuing. I mean, honestly, a little bit of folding going on. I don't think people are folding too often on the turn versus 76% pot bet with a king, but we do some folding. These hands only continue with spades. Is 8? Wow, so 8-7 of spades is just folding with the gutter and a flush draw. Wow, I'm pure calling 8-7 of spades here. Always. But I guess even if the straight comes in, any queen beats us still, so I can see why it's a fold. For sure. Queen 6. So all these queen X of spades raising with the gutter and flush draw. I wouldn't hit this frequency often enough, these raises. Probably just call in these spots. Generally. Okay. So we'll have a bet call. I'm going to look at a 3 of hearts river, which is just a complete blank. So our value cutoff here on the river, king 10 is checking. So king queen is mostly checking here. What? So the cutoff of our value range was with king queen mostly being checked. I'm always betting king queen here in position. I'm never checking back king queen. So I very well could be like losing money by being too thin on this river. But it's like 2 pairs are over betting, queen 8's a bluff. 10-9 of clubs being turned into a bluff. Not blocking any suits. 9's overbet, 10-8 overbet bluff. 3s and 4s. Oh, okay, well those are your sets actually. Ace 10 with a club. Ace of clubs. Bluffing. I mean, this is still the first board. But whether I think it's an overbluffed or underbluffed spots. It's gonna take too long to load this. I mean, I think in practice, a lot of this is gonna be underbluffed. I don't think people are even coming close to hitting the proper bluff frequencies on most turns. And king queen 4 I expect to be like the same. It's basically the same board. Retreat. This is range bet, okay. Alright, so look at king, queen, 4 now. And we'll do some in-depth PO analysis here, look at what combos are bluffing, and see if we think this is going to be an overbluffed or underbluffed spot bet population. So just a range 33 bet, big blind response, folding 40%, raising 20, calling 43. The value raise cutoff is king 4, queen 4 actually, is, yeah! I'll be right back in 1 second. Alright. So big blind value raise cutoff is queen 4. And for bluffs, it's using like some smaller 4x. Some of these spade combos with backdoor straight draws. Jack 10, probably with a spade. Yeah, Jack 10 with a spade. And these Jack 10s, basically pure raising. King Queen is a 2 pair. So actually, I guess King Jack is the value cutoff for a big blind raise, which isn't even raising at a very high frequency at all. Ace Jack with a spade. These are definitely raises I missed from big blind. These gutters with an overcard and flush draw blocker. And then we'll look at what flush draws are raising here. So the queen, so if I was in big blind here with queen 9 of spades, I feel like I almost always raise the pair and flush draw combos, but PO is doing a lot of just calling with these. Wow, the EV difference. Okay, yeah, there's like no difference in EV between raise or call. I usually play these pair and flush draw hands as like a pure raise. Yeah, I guess that's not that big of a mistake. So now we'll look at turns and see if we think this is an underbluffed or overbluffed spot. So here on this 6, just like the King Jack 4, this is an over better check spot. Value cutoff being King Jack. King 10 at some frequency with a spade. Okay, so King 10 with a spade is the value cutoff here for an overbet on the turn. Bluffs, we keep ace 10 as a pure bluff, ace jack with a spade is a pure bluff without doing a decent amount of checking. Yeah, queen X is checking, weaker king X is checking. Ace 3, just a pure bluff. I always miss these. I never, in practice, this is never an overbet I'm making here. Like ace deuce of spades, yes, but ace deuce of hearts, diamonds, clubs, ace 3 of hearts, diamonds, clubs, just like it's not a play I'd ever make. Ace 6 is an overbet as well. So it's just so nice to come in here and look at this and just see what's optimal versus how I play. which is pretty far off from optimal, it would seem, just by looking at this. So Jack 9 is just a pure overbet. So it seems like the lower equity draws. See, it's like Jack 9 gutter, 10 9 gutter are pure overbets here, while Jack 10 is checking back at some frequency. So these 5-4, these like lower pairs are blasting off here as a bluff. So if we have 7-6 here, barrel turn is an overbet, get called by like some kind of king. What do we do on like a brick river? Put like a 2 of hearts river out. Check. Do we follow through? Okay. So we are following through. But not when we block spades. Okay, so just important to not block spades if we're thinking about going for a bluff here. And I will be back again. 1 sec, really quick. took a lot longer than expected. Sorry about that. Hopefully, just fast forwarded through all that, and let's jump back into this. So we are following through with these bluffs. I think. So these hands are mixing. Wow. Okay. So ace deuce wants to jam here. Our value jams, kings, king, queen, queens, king, queen. Jack 10 is a bluff sometimes. 7-6 is just ripping it in. 6-5 is ripping it in. As long as we're not blocking spades. So when we get to these rivers, on these boards that leave big blinds capped to a certain extent, when we're not blocking spades, we're following through with these. This is like a 2x pot jam, more than a 2x pot, I guess. Oh, actually it is 2x pot, exactly. Or no, a little over 2x pot. My math, not great here, but there's just so much information to take in looking at every single one of these spots. Now whether this is an overbluffed or underbluffed spot, like in practice it seems pretty underbluffed. Here 9-8, not blocking spades. We're betting. With clubs, it's a pure overbet, but the EV differential isn't huge between 76 and overbet. Interesting. It does kind of hurt seeing how much I misplay these spots, or just like how many bluffs I'm missing. And I probably go too thin for value often. Like I'd always bet king jack for value here. I feel like I'd bet king 10 a lot for value as well. Interesting that king 9 is betting more than king 10. And king 8. And I guess that's because when we have the 10, we're blocking villains folding range with like his straight draws, and when we don't have a 10, we have, or when we don't have a 10, it's more likely villain has a hand that's not a draw that has some showdown value. I guess is the reasoning here. So like whether this is underbluffed or overbluffed, it's very hard to say. Like my gut reaction is that it's just underbluffed. Yeah, with ace 5 betting so much. I don't think any spades were ever bluffing with spades. Ace jack of spades is bluffing. 7-8 of spades is ripping it in. It's the only plus EV line is a jam. Ace 5. Ace 3, okay. So just in general, anytime we have spades, we're not going to be bluffing. And then with clubs here, like whatever suit isn't on the board, because we're not blocking villain's folding range, like any flush draws, backdoor flush draws villain might have been continuing with, didn't get there. And when we have clubs, we're not blocking any of that stuff. So like you can see like 9-8 of clubs here, pure bluff. 8-7 is a pure bluff, not a jam, but 2/3 pot bluffs. 7-6 of clubs, 6-5 of clubs, bluff jam. 5-4. Preferred's 2/3 is a bluff, and then we have like these ace-5, ace-3, ace-deuce hands. So in general, I guess I would say underbluffed here. Very hard to say though. Yeah, seems pretty underbluffed. One thing I don't want to have happen though is like I want to make sure that I'm not overbluffing in these spots by thinking it's an underbluff spot and then deciding to overbluff. Like, I want to make sure I get the right bluff frequencies and the right combos to use for bluffs. So here, high draw potential. These are two monotone boards, and I have a feeling these are going to be underbluffed spots, most likely, but we'll see. So 33 mix is a preferred strategy. Queen, Jack, 5, mono. Low tree. Mix a preferred strat. I do a lot of range checking on these mono boards. Wait, what? Why did it load this board? We had Queen, Jack, 5, mono, right? Yep. So we predicted range check would be the ideal strat on this board. And it's 33 mix, but we are still doing a good amount of checking. So our lower flushes are checking, and our higher flushes want to bet, which makes sense just to build a pot, flush over flush spots. So it makes sense to check back with lower flushes here and bet more frequently with the higher flushes. So ace king with a spade, ace queen with a spade, pure betting, king queen with a spade, doing a decent amount of checking. So pretty even split on this board between bet and check when playing a mixed strategy. Aces preferring to have a spade to bet. Just because I'll play range check on these mono boards so often, I don't know what the EV differential is here between the 33 mix and just a range check. So this is a queen, jack, 5 range check. This is 32.28, and this is 33 mix is 32.6. So not a huge EV loss if we wanted to simplify this to a range check, which I do a lot on mono boards just to make it. Just to simplify and make it easier for myself to play these spots. So we'll check, and we'll look at a blank turn. Let's look at big blind strategy here when it goes check check on a mono board. Like, what cards is big blind leading, if ever? Not a lot of leading going on, so mostly just a check out of in position here. Hands that do want to bet are nut flushes. Makes enough sense. Lower flushes still doing a good amount of checking. And here are some bluffs, like these lower, not much showdown value hands that might get some better hands to fold. This is gonna be an underbluff spot, no question. From big blind at least, like leading this turn. Who's gonna lead this turn? Overbet with 4 deuce of diamonds. Like it's not a play I'm ever making. So from the big blind, mono board goes check check. 4 deuce is an open ender. So like these lower open ended draws we can overbet bluff with, maybe. That's like a general heuristic on these boards. We just don't have much of an overbetting range. In a lot of our overbetting range, I'm sure is going to be like ace high draws, and it is. So then like to counteract these bluffs, we're overbetting with some nut flushes as well. Okay. Yeah, I actually really like this strategy. So like overbetting with some of these hands, or 75% pot bet, but then balancing with nut flushes as an overbet. I like this. Definitely underbluffed from big blind's perspective. From imposition's perspective here, we're checking 60% when flop goes check check. So on a spade, that seems to be our highest frequency betting, but just a lot of checking and small betting going on here for imposition. When this board goes check check, like look at all the 30% bets. When the flush comes in, that's only sizing. On a 10 plus, most of our bets is just going to be 30% when it goes check check. So if we check back a flush, and the turn is a 3 of hearts, I'm assuming we're just pure bet. We want to get value now with our flushes, so it's just a pure bet with every single flush. Betting with all of our ace X of spades too. So from imposition's perspective, I was about to say this could be an overbluffed spot, but then it's like who is ever betting here or is bluffing here with ace 6 of hearts? Which makes me now want to believe it's an underbluff spot. Like just look at all this ace X betting. Obviously the nut flushes are getting in there, but like these non-flush combos, very surprising to see this much betting going on. Ace 4 is a gutter. Ace 3 has a pair. Ace deuce is a gutter. Wow. Here, combos that prefer a small sizing are the non-flush combos. Here. So hands that have a pair, but no flush with it. Prefer to bet small. Aces preferring to bet larger, especially with a spade. The non-spade combos pretty indifferent between the two sizings. And just no overbetting really. It's going to be a general heuristic on these mono boards. Yeah. So with our nut flushes, we're just betting 76%. But yeah, seeing all these ace combos really leads me to believe this is an underbluff spot as well. And like that 2-4, yeah, it seems pretty underbluffed. And look at ace 10 deuce rainbow now. Our preferred strategy here was range check. this. Once it loads up. And ace 10 deuce mono. So we're playing range check. So we get 6 of hearts. And how much leading is big blind doing here? Guess is not much, and not much at all. Mostly pure check coming out of the big blinds on a 6 of hearts. Betting 15%, and we're doing this with flushes, it looks like. So one thing I'm picking up on just after these first two hands is these mono boards. If you're in the big blind, it goes check, check. We see a lot of leading with these lower no showdown value hands. 4-3 is a gutter. Pair of twos. So just like the low equity small cards. And I guess the logic behind this is that these are never combos in position has. And in position I'm just trying to think of the logic on why we're using these specific hands to lead with. And I'm not really sure, but definitely interesting to note that a decent chunk of big blind's leading range on these boards is this kind of area, these smaller low equity hands that interact with like the bottom part of the board. Spades, flush, so mostly checking. And now here's imposition strategy. Checking 56%. Equity across these turns when it goes check, check. So, okay. So when it goes check, check, and then big blind checks to imposition, just like so much equity for imposition here. Just like with, especially if we're playing a range check strategy, because we're still uncapped as big blind. We still have all the nut flushes and sets and everything. So if we look at our strategy here, it's a decent amount of betting. No overbetting. And a lot of 30% sizings being used. So just the fact that there's so much checking going on makes me think these boards, although I feel like mono boards are played so passively by population in general. So I was going to say, seeing how passive Pio plays these spots, it could be an under, or it could be an overbluff spot potentially, but then when you think about how population plays these spots, it's like probably underbluffed, just because people play so passively on these boards in general. Alright, so we'll look at the 6 of hearts and see what combos specifically are doing what. So we're still uncapped. If we have a set of aces here, the EV of a check is best in every case scenario here. But I'm never checking aces here. It's just a pure bet. Ace king is a pure bet, with the spade especially, doing a lot more checking with. And I think these combos are playing so passively because, in Pio at least, because big blind is supposed to be checking some flushes and still, you know, have some strength. But I feel like population is going to be leading every flush here. At least a lot of the time. Um, and so if population is leading their flushes, but they check, then I'm assuming ace king is going to be just a pure bet with a spade or not. Just because that would affect our strategy so much. These lower aces. So if we do want to bet with an ace, the best aces we go 75%. The weaker aces we go 30%. And again, in practice, I'm probably just betting these aces range because I expect population to lead most flushes, so most of our ace-x hands are going to be value betting here, and then can just like decide what to do on the river. Like interesting that ace two, it's a two pair, and it's a just always checking here. And I guess you do want to have some strong hands in your check back range that aren't flushes, but still surprising to see that. Are we ever checking back a flush? No. Okay, good. I wouldn't think so. Overbetting some of these nut flushes. Ooh, interesting. King, queen, king, jack. Pure bet with the king of spades and doing a decent amount of overbetting. Is very interesting. And we're doing that with some nut flushes as well. Okay. Like in general, I just won't overbet on these boards. I'll just play a 75% or 30% strategy. It's just like I feel like a general heuristic I've gotten used to is like no overbetting on monotone boards. Really, that could be like doing more harm to my game than good. But I feel like in general, there's just not going to be much overbetting on these boards. Well, actually, there's not. Like, it's true that in general there won't be much overbetting on these boards. Which, like, if you just look at an in position strategy, like, you know, there's just no overbetting. Like, see, we're looking at the six of hearts right now. You can see this tiny sliver of overbetting. It's like 4% of hands, and this is the 4%. Is like these nut flushes, and then these king queen nut flush blockers, queen jack nut flush blocker. Like, and that's it. That's the extent of our overbetting range here, I'm sure. So like, it can't be that terrible to just completely get rid of. Yeah. So like, it involves the king of spades in some way. Our overbets. So jack 9 is betting. Wow, like every jack 9 is betting here. Our one pair tens, pure check. So our value range gets cut off at ace x. Like ace 3 is as thin as I'd go for value here. Pio's checking ace 3 so frequently, but again, that's because big blind's supposed to check backs and flushes on the turn, or checks and flushes on the turn, but in practice, I don't think many people are going to be doing that. So yeah, all 10x is checking. So some bluffs we're utilizing here. 8-7 is almost a pure bluff, bluffing very frequently. 6-5, 5-4, small sizing bluff. Deuces is a set, but these smaller pairs, 3s and 4s. I'm actually preferring to not have a spade to bluff with. 4s, 5s, 6s is a set on the turn now. 7s through 9s checking. Jacks. I would actually say, yeah, rather than ace deuce or ace 3 being my value cutoff, jacks maybe. I feel like I would bet jack small here and check back river pretty often. But yeah, so like if we bet small with kings here, aces I'm going to be betting 75% purely, although it seems like a small bet works just as good. It's just such a strong hand, plus could always boat up on the river. Like tens, interesting that aces are playing so passive, tens are playing much more aggressively. But I guess it's because when we have aces, we're blocking villain's non-flush continuing range. So that he's going to be continuing mostly with flushes when we have aces. But when we have tens, then villain has all the ace-x combos that he could have that we are beating, so that makes sense. Same with sixes. I want to see like what the reasoning behind, or try to figure out what the reasoning behind these bluffs is, so in practice I can be more consistent with getting these frequencies. So queen 9, jack 9. Like they're just air balls. They're total air balls. Like there's no way of us improving on the river. Like these bluffs just make way more sense to me. Like queen jack with a spade, king jack with a spade is playing aggressively. Even without a spade, betting a lot. Same with queen jack. So like these are bluffs that make sense that I would hit these pretty often in practice. At least like the proper frequencies with these hands. With these combos though, like I'm just not going to be betting queen 9 often here without spades, or jack 9 either. But P was basically betting these 100% of the time. Between 30 and 75. So in practice, this is definitely an underbluff spot. Although, I'm trying to think, like on this mono board, I feel like because we're playing ranged, or like a lot of the times I'll play a ranged check on these mono boards. Like some weaker regs will see that as like I can never have a high spade if I'm checking back, because like I'd want to, like if I had a flush I'd want to get value, or if I had a high spade I'd want to, rep like I have a flush. So when I check back, like just for some bad regs. So in that case, it could be turned into an overbluff spot, at least from big blind's perspective. But anyway, it makes it easy to play when we're range checking. So like we continue with all flushes, all good draws, all top pairs, stuff like this. The interesting spot. So let's see if we bet jack 9 for a third pot here. We're getting raised 10% of the time with nut flushes, it looks like. So a lot of nut flushes are raising, a lot of king X with the king of spades. King jack, king queen. Queen jack raises versus these smaller flushes are doing a good amount of raising. Jack high flushes, queen high flushes, the weaker king high flushes. Anyway, we'll just say big blind calls with an ace, and the river is another brick. So what does in position do with my jack 9 here? So we shut down with jack 9, queen 9. I like that. So like the bluffs we come to the river with are we jamming aces now? Oh no, it's not a jam, it's just a overbet. So interesting that aces are playing so passively on the turn and then so aggressively on the river. with the ace of hearts. Overbetting, and without the ace of hearts doing more 30. This is so weird. I feel like you don't see this often down here with the aces in the bottom right, where the EV of bet 30 and bet and overbet are identical almost, and then the EV of 2/3 bet's just so much lower. That is interesting, and I don't really get that. But, King Queen with a spade is overbet bluffing. King Jack with a spade is overbet bluffing. Ace 10 two pair, doing some overbetting with ace 10. King 5. King 5 is blasting off here. What are we doing with King 5 on the turn and King 7? What? What are we doing on the turn with these hands? So check. King 7, King 5. So all these King 5s are betting small and then just going for it on the river. Ah, this is such an underbluff spot now that I look at this. Like when I'm never doing this with fucking King 5. Oh my god, poker is just such a hard fucking game. Like, to hit all these frequencies, there's just so many combos to consider. So that's the thing, if I'm in position in the spot, range checking this board, big blind checks to me, am I betting 30% or 75% with 8-7 of clubs here? Not really. Another thing to consider is, or like why this would be an underbluff spot, is because as in position, if you're playing a range check on the flop, generally checking back a flop like this is considered, or will often be perceived by like weak regs as weakness. So then your turn bet might look bluffy on like a low card like this, because it's like, oh, if you had an ace when you bet on the flop, if you had a flush when you bet on the flop, which I guess is good for getting value once we are betting with flushes and ace highs. Yeah, really interesting spot here. There's just so much going on. Like so many things to consider when making these decisions. So again, on this mono board, oops, we'll say it's an underbluff spot. I mean, I feel like these are almost always going to be underbluff spots for me. There's just so many combos that want to bet, but we'll see. We'll keep looking at these boards. Low draw potential, King 9 Deuce Rainbow, 33 range bet is our preferred strategy. King 9 Deuce Rainbow. Fire low tree. So this is going to be a 33 range bet on this board. Just a really quick rundown through big blinds, check raises. These lower aces with a backdoor, without a backdoor, pure fold. So on these dry boards with the deuce out there, and if that deuce was like a 3, then this would just have ace-2's frequency, and ace-2 would be doing what ace-3 is doing. So important to remember these combos. Nice to have the ace over card, backdoor flush draw, straight draw potential. gonna win the pot just after the raise a lot, and then can keep barreling on favorable turns. Raising king 9. Okay, raising king 10, king queen. King 10 with the backdoor is a pure raise. King 10 plus. Queen jack raising at some frequency. Queen 10. Jack 10. Some of these 9s are raising. And the lower deuce X, of course. Population, I don't think is ever going to be hitting this 20% raise frequency. Like, it's half as large as the call frequency, and I don't think people are hitting that even, like, are coming close to that in general. So we'll call, put out the 4 hearts turn, and we will look at imposition strategy here. Gonna be an overbet or check spot probably. So some mixing going on. So as in position, when we range bet this board, any turned equity with these ace X holdings, so it looks like we're just blasting off on. Ace 5 blasting off with the gutter and the overcard. Ace 4 turning a pair, still blasting off. Ace 3, same thing. I'm gonna have to remember this to be using these combos as overbet bluffs here. Ace deuce is betting small, checking back a good amount. So in terms of our value range for overbetting this turn, looks like king queen is the cutoff for value. King jack, not so much, doing a lot of checking here, small betting. And then for bluffs, we have our gutters, our queen 10s, our queen jacks. Jack 10, queen 10. Let's see how our frequencies change with this queen 10 and jack 10 if rather than this being a rainbow turn, it's a turn that brings a flush draw. So now I'm assuming like our overbets with queen 10 and jack 10 are going to heavily favor having a diamond. And actually not really. Like, nothing changes that much. Jack 10 is definitely higher frequency with a diamond. Queen 10, nothing changed that much. But queen jack with a diamond has much more equity. Queen 10. So on the flush draw turn for imposition, we're overbetting 20%, checking 53. On the rainbow turn, we're overbetting 21%, checking 60. So we're actually doing more checking on the rainbow turn, more betting once the flush draw comes in. King 9, king 8 betting small. Well, actually it's checking without the flush draw. These combos are all doing the same thing regardless of the suit of the turn. Ace jack is okay, so that's with the flush draw. Spades. Still pretty high frequency with ace jack. Ace king value, obviously. Kings, aces, king queen. So let's look across all turns here. So for imposition, ace is a very high frequency card. Mixing all three sizings almost perfectly here, it seems. And a lot of mixing with the sizings just across all turns. So, polarizing more on the smaller cards that are leaving big blind capped. Still not as much polarizing as I would expect here, honestly. But whatever. Let's look at the ace of diamonds turn. Now we're value betting with these. No need to overbet bluff. 10-9 turns into a bluff. So our 9x, or weaker 9x. So third pair. So once an overcard to the board comes as in position when we get called, we can start turning these like third pair hands into bluffs, it seems. How'd it go?
Okay.
How'd you do?
I only made $62. 6 hours when I short. What'd your dad say? Did they invite us to dinner?
Yeah, but I said not tonight. Later this week, though.
Please, can we go to dinner? I am so hungry, and there's
Babe,
no food here.
No.
Please.
You can go.
Where are they going?
Sorrento's.
Babe! Babe! Babe, babe, babe.
Babe, I'm not going to Sorrento's tonight.
Babe, 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 babe. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. You're doing this for me.
Okay, hold on. So that's going to do it for the video today. We got cut short, but we will pick up tomorrow right where we left off. And if anyone made it this far, appreciate you watching, and I'll have a new video out tomorrow.